if we would take all the possible pitfalls for this particular season, whether it's offensive line, whether it's linebackers, whether it's a Justin Fields injury, which would be, I think, near catastrophic, considering the expectations, not that they're going to fall to 5-7 with Gunnar Hoke at quarterback, but I think it probably cost them a Big Ten championship because I just don't see the level of play being. If you look at the college football playoff participants during this era, they've had elite quarterback play almost 100% of the time, almost 100% of the time. But if you take all those possible issues, Ryan Day making a time management decision or a blunder of a game call or, a fake punt that goes awry, like hit Kirby Smart in the SEC championship game last year and the national championship game the year before, what would be the game? To Claire's question on our Twitter chat, what would be the game that it's going to show up? What is the Iowa-Purdue version of 2019, Claire?
I'm such a worrywart. I often will just wring my hands over every game until it's over. But, there's a difference between a game that looks tough on the schedule and a trap game. I think the first one that comes to mind is going to be Cincinnati. And you guys can roll your eyes all you want about this, but Cincinnati, they've got pretty much their entire offensive line coming back. Obviously, they've got both their 1,000-yard bruisers coming back, and it's going to be a signature win for them if they do. That's my first little, tick in my worrywart. Maybe could possibly be a first pitfall. And then I know, again, it might seem unfounded and weird, but Northwestern between Michigan State and Wisconsin is a trap game if I've ever seen one. At night, I don't think they have the talent to stack up, but neither did Purdue or Iowa. So it's definitely going to be a game where, like you said, Mark, Cincinnati, they might be able to manage early on in the season. Everyone's in prime health and in prime form. But a little bit later into the season, when they're facing Northwestern, it just kind of gives me that feeling. Laugh all you want, Kevin.
No, actually, I agree with you that Northwestern very much is that game. But the most obvious game is going to be Nebraska. I mean, that's the second road game of the season. They go to Indiana, so Indiana might be lucky to have 35% of the crowd. Everybody will travel. We'll travel through Indianapolis and then head south. The State Route 37 is beautiful now. You'll make it to Bloomington in no trouble. Ohio State may stumble a little bit there, but I'm not concerned about that game. It's Nebraska. Nebraska still doesn't know how to play defense, but I think they're going to be better, and that offense is going to be fantastic. Adrian Martinez is a real deal. He might be the best quarterback in the conference right now. They got a lot of questions on how they're going to replace Devino Zigbo, who's going to run the ball. Other than Adrian Martinez, J.D. Spielman is back. They lose Stanley Morgan Jr. They lose some other guys. But if they can figure out how to play defense, it's not going to take a quarterback going down like the first time Ohio State went to Nebraska for that game to get out of hand. Ohio State is going to have to bring it because there are a lot of things in that game that are – I mean, Nebraska just can flat out beat Ohio State. It has nothing to do with Ohio State being disinterested or making mistakes or anything along those lines. Nebraska can just beat them. I mean, I really believe that.
It was a close game.
Nebraska is good enough to beat Ohio State if both teams play either an A game or a B game or a C game.
I see where he's going.
Maybe Nebraska plays an A game and Ohio State plays a B plus game. I mean, things can happen at that point. I mean,
one of the 5 best teams in the country versus maybe one of the 30 or 40 best teams in the country.
But is it their place and probably going to be at night?
Sure.
I'm drinking the Kool-Aid.
They only beat them by 4 in Columbus last year, 4 or 5 points last year. And here's the other thing that people don't think about. Ohio State has absolutely rubbed it in Nebraska's face the last few years. I mean, I think one of the games was 55-14 or something.
62-3.
Yeah, it's been ugly. So, if they don't get up to play Ohio State, they can't get up to play anybody.
Phil Steele has them winning the West. He has them going from 0-6 to winning the West. And there has to be something to it. Again, if you're talking about coaches trying to get their bearings, Scott Frost, this is his time to do it if he's going to do it. And that sure would be a feather in his cap.
I think Scott Frost is as close to like an Urban Meyer 2.0 as the conference has. I think he's going to do outstanding there. And that is like, if you're looking for a 2017 Iowa, 2018 Purdue, it's 2019 Nebraska in terms of environment, stakes. Ohio State will be favored. And, that's the one that has its neon lights, all around it. Like, this is a danger zone. But, the Cincinnati thing, they'll have Cincinnati will have, I think they open the season on a Thursday. So they'll have a couple of extra days, but they open with UCLA. So it's not like they can just worry about Ohio State. Yeah. Nebraska is the one for me. The Northwestern, Ohio State does have a week off before that. So that helps. Obviously everybody is terrified of going to Rutgers, road games. I always look at the road games to see what the tough ones look like. And
we're not talking about whether Ohio State won't cover the spread, Tony. we're talking about winning the actual game.
But it's it's the Nebraska, it's the Northwestern, and obviously it's the Michigan. But that's a whole different discussion. But I think it's the Nebraska situation with the momentum that they have. Adrian Martinez is going to be very good. Like Kevin said, I don't know who's going to run the ball for them. I don't know who's going to tackle the ball for them, but did anybody know any of the running backs for Iowa as they were running past the Ohio State defense in 2017? How many Buckeye fans knew who Rondale Moore was before they watched him torch the Ohio State secondary and linebackers last year? So
I did.
Yeah, they weren't paying.
Recruiting guys know
that kid was.
But there weren't a lot of people who knew. I'm sure, maybe 40% of Purdue fans didn't even know who he was. And so, you look at the rosters and Mark, you're saying A plus, A versus A, it's Ohio State, but it's hard to get an A game on the road in every situation.
And so that was the point I was making, not to misinterpret what my point was in response to Kevin. Was not, I would not be shocked if Nebraska beat Ohio State this year. We've seen it the last 2 years. This is a very comparable Nebraska team to the Iowa and Purdue teams that were good teams, decent teams that could contend in the division, but not much nationally and nothing compared to Ohio State and a legit 2-touchdown underdog, pretty much both of those games. So the upset wouldn't surprise me. It's that I don't think if those teams play 10 times that this is a fair fight.
Nebraska right now is struggling to refine this identity in the Big Ten. And I know that sounds crazy. They just don't want to be the Tennessee. What Tennessee is to the SEC is what, Nebraska, this once, glorious in the 90s powerhouse is now just kind of dissipated in the middle of this conference. And it's going to be imperative for Scott Frost. They can't go 0-6 again. It's just not going to fly with this program.
I'm trying to figure out who should be angrier at you, Nebraska fans or Tennessee fans. I agree with it, but who do you make more angry with that?
Yeah, right. I don't know. Probably Tennessee fans. And this is the other, analogy for them. They're both really close to winning a lot of games. They cannot get over the hump. Both of those teams end up being really good and end up getting just enough recruits, and they just cannot get over the hump for one reason or another. It has to happen.
So are you saying that Derek Dooley and Bill Callahan are like brothers or something? Because both of them have made some really bad coaching hires along the way.
Yeah, those programs have been lost in the abyss for quite some time, aside from Butch Jones having 2 decent seasons at Tennessee. But it's been pretty bad for both of those programs. Of course, Bo Pelini was pretty consistent in winning 9 games, but Wisconsin would trample him and put them in their rightful place on a regular basis. And Nebraska.
You brought up the name there, Wisconsin. No one's talking about it because they had a terrible season last year by their standards. But they got a 2,000-yard rusher with Taylor, and if they come in and can establish the run against Ohio State's defense, which you don't see many teams that run the football like Wisconsin does, they're kind of the exception as opposed to what used to be the rule. And if their defense can maybe force some turnovers on Fields or whatever. That's one that can, people aren't thinking about that one at all. Wisconsin at Ohio State. I've seen it happen before, more than one time in my life, where they've come in and churned out a win over Ohio State when you wouldn't think it was even possible, but they've done it. And I'm not saying that they've got the team to do it, but given how bad they were last year, but that's one everyone's got that one chalked up as a win. Well, I'm not so sure.
I think that's because they don't have a quarterback. Jack Cohn, everybody in this chat is a better quarterback than Jack Cohn. They're going to have to play Graham Mertz. If they don't play Graham Mertz, the true freshman, they're not going to do anything. Jack Cohn is terrible. Their other quarterback, Alex Hornibrook, transferred to Florida State because he got the yips and he ended up leaving. And, God bless him. He's going to need all the help he can get at Florida State because they can't block anything. So now you have Jack Cohn, who I couldn't identify out of a crowd of two. He's horrible. Horrible. I can't even say it enough. And I hate being the guy that's bashing an amateur athlete, but horrible.
Well,
and what's your take on Jack Cohn?
Horrible.
By that point, they'll have somebody that can do something, I would think. But
horrible.
We'll see.
Yeah, I think they go with Graham Mertz. The sooner they go with Graham Mertz, the sooner they can begin that progression to Big Ten West, championships, or in terms of competing against, if we're crowning Nebraska, if we're crowning Northwestern, the sooner you get Graham Mertz going, the sooner I think they can take over that division again.
It's a fun division. Illinois is out of it, and the rest of them have something to hang their hat on to say, hey, we're either established already, or in the case of Minnesota, Nebraska, hey, we've got some hope. We've got new facilities. We've got a hot new coach, Dave Fleck, Scott Frost.
Yeah,
I love it.
Yeah, with Illinois getting the transfer, Brandon Peters from Michigan. Let's not forget. He has been quarterback whispered to by Jim Harbaugh, so he's going to be pretty good. Maybe even the best quarterback outside of Michigan because he has the Jim Harbaugh touch.
Oh,
nothing.
All right.
No.